Welcome back. DA with you here on CBS Sports Radio. So glad you're with us. Happy Tuesday morning. As always, full episodes available on our iTunes page. Simply check out our iTunes feed by searching DA and CBS. Also on our website, daoncbs.com. If you missed anything or want to hear it again, our next guest has played 5 years in the NFL at tight end. He was an all Pac-12 tight end as well. He has played for the Colts and the Saints. He's now involved with SyncThink as a technology and a business that is looking inside how eye and brain analytics can be helped by simple new technologies, testing, and expanded software with a VR system, which I think is really, really cool. SyncThink, the creators of this platform, and he is on the athlete advisory board for them. Coby Fleener joining us this morning on the show. Coby, how you doing?
Good. Doing well. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. You're on the athlete advisory board for the brain health tech company SyncThink, and they're the creators of iSync, a platform that works with VR, and it assesses, rehabilitates, and looks at dynamic vision training. And we've talked about this on my show before, and I found this interesting because we just had Vontae Davis retire middle of the game yesterday, middle of the game on Sunday, and bring up health concerns, health issues. When you saw Vontae Davis retire middle of the game and then cite long-term health issues or concerns, what'd you think?
It's impossible for anyone to know what was going on, right? I mean, maybe there was an injury, maybe there was something that I think it's easy to jump to conclusions from the outside looking in, myself included. But that said, it was certainly an unusual situation.
Seems kind of crazy, right? As a guy that's been in those locker rooms before, it is hard to imagine, I would guess, hard to imagine a guy in the middle of the game saying, I'm done for good. How would that play in a locker room that you've been in?
I can't imagine a situation where it would play very well. I think, though, I guess playing devil's advocate a little bit here, if somebody said, I'm walking out of my radio job mid-show and I want to go do something else, it wouldn't be a shock to the world. It would just be kind of unusual. But I think because of kind of the nature of what Vontae does and the media surrounding it, that it becomes a bigger deal.
Well, I think actually I brought that example up on the air. I think it would be maybe not a huge shock the way the attention is on the NFL, but I think my guys would flip out if in the middle of the show, going into a commercial break, I just said, I'm out, find somebody else to do the rest of the show for you. I mean, I can't imagine how that plays with coworkers or peers, and especially with the brotherhood and bond that is in an NFL locker room, especially also because you can only carry so many quarterbacks on a roster for an active roster. So for him to just say, middle of the game, I'm out, that puts him in a precarious position, right?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, they have backups because the game is so dangerous and injuries and all that stuff. But I guess in your situation, there's really no backup waiting on the sideline, so it would be a more interesting predicament.
Coby Fleener joins us this morning on the show. So it brings us to SyncThink, and it brings us to this amazing kind of technology that you are working with, iSync and SyncThink. And to me, I wonder, there is so much more education now surrounding brain trauma, concussions, et cetera. Do you speak to athletes or former athletes that are more worried than when you first got into the game because there's more education, or maybe less worried because we have more education and it's helping people understand themselves better?
So I think it goes both ways. I think that you're viewing it correctly. I think guys are more aware of the damage that's being done. I think we're consistently and constantly learning more information about brain trauma and its long-term effects. And I think SyncThink as a company is one of many that are trying to glean more information for the athletes and for the medical professionals in sports.
Do you think that we're far away from a CTE test for the living? Because that's always kind of been that glass ceiling. When we finally have a CTE test for those that are living, it would make players and athletes so much more informed about their future. Do you think we're far away from that?
Oh boy, that's a I don't know. I was going to say $1 million question, but that might be $1 billion question. There's so much involved that goes into that. I could not even take a guess. I'm not familiar enough with the research and kind of where we are with that regarding the biomarkers that would kind of let us know when someone has CTE.
I've heard some players say, I'd want to know. I've heard some players say, I wouldn't want to know. In your case, would you want to take a test for CTE if, that we had one that you could test it for while you were obviously still living?
That's a tough question to answer off the cuff. I think it's kind of the same thought process of, if there is a pre-cancer test or if there is a pre-Alzheimer test, these are diseases that will impact your life in a great way. And by great, I mean a large way. I think it would take a lot of thought for me to answer that question and be comfortable with my answer. And I don't know the answer to it, honestly.
Coby Fleener joins us this morning on the show. As I mentioned before, SyncThink has a platform where you have a VR headset and you're assessing kind of the eye and vision, and that helps you understand where your motor skills are at. And it seems like it's a really cool idea. How exciting is it for you to be part of a process right now that seems to be kind of pushing ahead the technology when it comes to concussions and vision and things of that nature?
That's awesome. I think what really got me excited about it was taking the subjectivity of the diagnosis as much as we can out of it, to where, the player comes off to the sideline and he or she is kind of thinking to themselves, oh, I got hit pretty good on that last one, kind of doing a self-diagnosis on the sideline. It's a hard thing to do, especially if you are, in fact, suffering from a brain injury. And so if we can kind of take that aspect out of it, that I'm all for that.
Coby Fleener joining us this morning on the show. And for Coby and iSync and SyncThink, I've seen the technology before. I've seen how it works. I think it's a really cool concept and idea. And in the NFL, do you find finally that your peers are interested in all of that type of information, or is there still an element of, you know what, I've played football all my life, I know there's an inherent danger, I just want to keep going out there and play? Or do you find guys that are really receptive and looking for all that data and information?
I think there are more and more guys looking for the data and looking for the information as to how they can protect themselves and how they can make sure that they come away at the end of the day as healthy as possible. I think there are certainly some guys that want to stick their head in the sand and pretend that things aren't problematic. But I think the reality is that the amount of information continues to grow, and the amount of guys that are interested in it also continues to grow.
Coby Fleener has played in the NFL for both the Colts and the Saints. He was first-team All-Pac-12 as well. Joining us here on the show, as I mentioned before, SyncThink and iSync, some really cool technology that's worth checking out if you're interested in seeing where the education and the technology is going for diagnosing concussions and seeing where the hand-eye coordination and those data points are. Coby, it's great to catch up, man. Thanks so much for the information today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, DA.